This is CBC Here and Now.
Came to the front door and looked out, and you can see the damage that we saw. There was a virtual river running down the road.
Major road washouts and flooded rivers as record rainfall hits the Avalon. We'll tell you why there is still more to come.
So that was Ken Mahoney you just heard. That's Ken's house, the brown one, and that's the city of St. John's tearing up his entire street. We'll have more from Kilbride coming up.
Emergency rooms in St. John's are facing unprecedented pressures, according to Eastern Health. According to the Nurses Union, so are staff.
They're mentally and physically exhausted, and some are actually just walking away.
I'll have more on the ER emergency.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan. We begin tonight with the damage brought on by post-tropical storm Earl. We'll get to the forecast, but first, let's get to Kilbride. A lot of water has come down, and the west end of St. John seems to be one of the hardest areas hit. Jeremy Eaton has been out all day surveying the damage, chatting with folks about the weather. Jeremy, tell me about what's happening there right now.
Well, right now, as you can see, the city of St. John's is tearing up the entire street because earlier this morning, residents on Mooney Crescent here in Kilbride woke up to a river where their road once was, and that caused the road to collapse. Now, one of those residents was Ken Mahoney, and we spoke to him earlier today, and here's a bit of our conversation.
Well, I got a phone call from my brother next door, and he said he could hear water running, and I came to the front door and looked out, and you can see the damage that we saw. There was a virtual river running down the road there and everything. So,
In the nearly 30 years that you lived here, have you ever seen anything like this?
not even close, my friend. Not, and I never had a drop of water in 26 years till, like I said, I had the flood there in February. So, I was glad to see that it didn't come in the house this time anyway.
Now, the road is buckled there behind you. Did it make a sound, or did it slowly sink, or how did it get to look like this?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It was up this morning. The pavement was actually up this morning, and as the water's been running all day, it's after dropping down through and falling in slowly over the course of the morning and the afternoon, I guess.
You obviously you can't get out of your driveway because there's a river going through it. So what have you been doing all day? Just keeping an eye on things, calling the city insurance? Or?
Yeah, well, just checking with the city. They've been here. They've been on site since this morning, and my mother's house out back is actually flooded. So we got a pump going over there now, trying to get the water down from the furnace. It's up to the furnace over there. So my brother lives over there now, actually. So we're just over trying to clean that mess up. That's what and my cousin up the road, that's right here. His basement flooded also. So yeah, it's a mess.
And what's the city telling you about how long until you can actually? Because you can't drive anywhere right now.
No, they said that they got the excavator here on site now. They said they're gonna make a path here so that we'd be able to get out if we got to get out for an emergency or anything like that. So they're gonna build some kind of culvert or something, whatever they're saying, and so we can get back and forth with the vehicle. So.
And did they give you any timeline on when this could actually be drivable?
No, they said first they got to get the water stopped. Once the water stops, then they're gonna better look at it. So, but they're not sure.
So now, earlier today, the city of St. John's held a little bit of a press conference to discuss all the rain and the impact it had. And here's what the deputy manager for City Works, Lynn Windsor, had to say.
Right now, the phase we're in is there are some roads that could be open within the next hour or so. There's others that we still have to do sort of assessments on to assess what damage is done. So there's other roads, if there's damage to asphalt and sidewalk and these types of things, it's going to be a longer repair time. But if it's just debris washed on the road, that's things that we can have cleared up today and tomorrow for sure. So depending on the area, there would be a different timeline.
Now, obviously, this isn't going to be cleared up today or tomorrow. As you can see behind me, work is well underway, ripping up the road and the concrete sidewalk. So it is going to take a little bit of while to fix this up. Now, just down the road from Ken Mahoney, a lot of that water and rock and debris rolled downhill to other residents on, what's the name of that road again? Sorry, Mooney Crescent. So basically, and that flooded a number of basements. A lot of residents there very concerned, trying to dig out not only the water, but trying to get rid of the rocks from the road that had washed down as well. Now, later on in the show, I'm going to have more of an interview, more of the conversation with the city about the damage that happened here overnight and into today and over the long weekend. But to give us a better picture of the weather is an old friend of ours, Ryan Snodden. So Ryan, what can you tell us?
Thanks very much, Jeremy. Hope you're staying safe out there, and I hope all of you folks are staying safe as well. Of course, when we've had this much rain, obviously those waterways are extra dangerous, and you can see how much rain has fallen. Paradise, 207 millimeters. Pippi Park, 200 millimeters. St. John's West, almost 200 millimeters. And yeah, Petty Harbor, St. John's Airport, Bay Bulls. I mean, just an incredible amount of rainfall that has been falling, obviously, as we know, all weekend long. The winds, yeah, I mean, these were pretty strong gusts. For Newfoundland standards, not so much, but this time of year, these types of winds, as we did see, can bring down a few limbs and whatnot and lead to some power outages. So you can see those gusts 80 plus, even 100 plus in a few isolated areas. Now, the system itself, the remnants of Earl, still spinning around the Grand Banks. The good news is this blocking high is going to allow this system to finally move off to the east, and we are going to be seeing some improvements in the forecast as we move forward over the next couple of days. So there is, again, the center of Earl, remnants of Earl, moving away. Onshore flow continues through tonight, in through tomorrow. More drizzle, more showers, but again, the bulk of the rain tapering off here. And then as we work our way into the later stages of tomorrow and certainly into Wednesday morning, we're finally going to see some sunshine just in time for our next system to arrive. We'll break it all down with your full weather details coming up in a few minutes. Peter.
Well, thanks, Ryan. And now to Labrador to talk about floods past. People in Mud Lake are being offered upwards of $270,000 to relocate out of fears for future flooding. But some say it's not enough. The Central Labrador community was hit hard in 2017 after the rising Churchill River destroyed homes and displaced families. Now, typically you need 75% of a community to agree to relocate. But last week, the province waived that requirement due to environmental circumstances and geography. That means individual households in Mud Lake can apply for up to $270,000 if they wish. The Premier was asked today if the province would consider paying out more due to the higher housing costs in nearby communities. He didn't rule it out.
Sure, we always look at that calculus. It's not straightforward. It has several different inputs, but it's one that we are always reevaluating. This is an environmental issue that we're trying to mitigate for the future, and moving them if they so choose, is one way to prevent a potential disaster.
Well, now to healthcare news. Emergency rooms in St. John's are overwhelmed. So much so that Eastern Health is asking people to stay away from the ER this past weekend unless it was absolutely necessary. Here now's Katie Breen has more.
What does it say when a health authority, the body responsible for running healthcare in a region, tells people not to go to the emergency room unless experiencing a medical emergency?
It's definitely a sign that the situation is very critical, that the extreme wait times have increased.
It's unprecedented pressure. That's what Eastern Health says. The health authority put out a press release on Saturday pleading with the public to seriously consider whether or not they need to go to the emergency room, and to only go after considering all other options like calling 811 or visiting a family doctor. But not everybody has a family doctor. The president of the Nurses Union says the current situation is a culmination of issues. Without enough family doctors, patients go to the ER to be seen. Some even go to get prescriptions filled. She says St. John's hospitals are over capacity on a weekly, if not daily basis. There's not enough room in long-term care or on the floors, so admitted patients stay in emergency departments, taking up those beds. And staff are burning out. Over the weekend, Coffey said one shift at the health sciences was down to half its regular staff.
We need incentives to retain the nurses that we have and recruit new people into positions. Because right now, we're just hemorrhaging nurses on a daily basis because they just can't cope any longer in a system where they don't get breaks, where they're mandated overtime, where they're working 24-hour shifts. even in the emergency departments.
And it's not just St. John's. Emergency rooms across the province have been facing staff shortages, even regular closures in recent months.
Our system, we've been saying, is on the verge of being of breaking, and I think we're beyond that broken point now.
Katie Breen, CBC News, St. John's. What does it say when a health authority, the body responsible for running healthcare in a region,
Apologies there for seeing the bit of Katie's item again, but to Central Health now, where the health authority says it's completed its review of mammography images. Those images were read on substandard equipment. It says the images of more than 3,000 patients have now been reviewed and 9 require further follow-up. Those 9 people will be contacted by phone, and Central Health will reach out to their primary health care provider. All other patients should receive a letter from the health authority by the end of this week. Well, and a stressful start to the school week. Prince of Wales Collegiate in St. John's brought in extra safety measures this morning when the building went into secure school mode. RNC officers were on site determining the validity of a threat at the high school, but said there was no threat to the public. Classes continued at the school, but staff and students weren't permitted to move throughout the building. That began at 11:30 and lasted a little over an hour. According to the school district, students remain safe and supervised inside the classrooms until the incident was resolved. And speaking of schools, a new school opened its doors for Francophone students in St. John's this morning. École Rocher du Nord is housed at the former School for the Deaf on Topsail Road. Students from grades 7 to 12 were excited to set foot inside of the new school, but half the building is still under renovation. Construction is expected to be ongoing until next September, when the school will open for all grades from kindergarten to grade 12. It's Sexual Violence Awareness Week across the province. Pam Parsons, the minister responsible for women and gender equality, signed the declaration in front of reporters last week, but not everyone is pleased with government's action on this issue. As Here and Now's Malone Mullen explains, one activist thinks this new Awareness Week is little more than lip service.
Heather Elliott has been here before. She spent days waving a sign outside Supreme Court 2 years ago, during RNC officer Doug Snellgrove's second sex assault trial. Elliott has been asking for legislative changes to help sexual violence survivors since then.
Naming this as Sexual Violence Awareness Week shows that we are getting better at having these conversations openly. I do, however, think it is sort of the bare minimum that could be done on the government level when it comes to addressing this issue. The fact is the government holds all the cards when it comes to making lasting, impactful change, and I would have liked to see something with a bit more teeth other than just naming an awareness week.
Elliott says in her circles, everybody's well aware of sexual violence and the long-ranging impacts it has on survivors. In the 2 years since she first held up that sign, she's petitioned the House of Assembly asking for real policy changes, including more coverage of consent in school curricula and the introduction of a special sexual assault court to help survivors seeking justice. Amid that work, headlines in recent months have filled up with accusations against police officers, with over a dozen women coming forward alleging cops sexually harassed or assaulted them. Against that backdrop, says Elliott, the province should be doing far more than simply raising awareness.
We don't need words, we don't need lip service, we need action. And I don't know how many different ways folks like myself can say that. Having an awareness week is great, but again, those conversations are happening on the community level. What is government doing on a policy, procedural, legislative level to ensure that these awareness weeks are going somewhere?
Last week, Minister Pam Parsons signed this Awareness Week declaration. But when asked some of the questions Elliott has, she couldn't point to concrete steps her office had taken to prevent sexual violence, saying only that she would support other departments and relegate funding to community groups.
We work closely with community stakeholders. I mean, they're on the front lines to work with victims and to support people to get to the supports that they need.
For Elliott, that's simply not good enough.
They have the means to actually make these decisions, and so to just boil it down to, but we gave you a week on a calendar, is really frustrating because there's a lot of us out here doing a lot of hard work, and a date on the calendar doesn't really help those people who are facing these kinds of issues right now in the present.
Malone Mullen, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, in political news, Perry Trimper has rejoined the Liberal Caucus. The MHA for Lake Melville was elected as an independent in the last election. He quit the Liberal Party, though, before that, after controversial comments that homeless people had made a choice. He says he was convinced to rejoin the party because the progress government has made on things like highway repairs, money to help people in Mud Lake who want to move, and progress on helping the homeless and transient population.
I've spoken out on matters where I've challenged them on the policy and some of the issues, but for the most part, I have been supporting them, on the budget and on other critical key decision votes that came to the House. So I'm looking forward now to having that closer access, that direct access, where we can roll up the sleeves, and where we have differences, we can speak to them.
Well, to national political news now, Pierre Poilievre got down to business today. On Saturday, he took 69% of the vote to win the Conservative Party leadership on the first ballot. And this morning, he addressed his caucus in Ottawa.
To the Prime Minister and to his radical woke coalition with the NDP, here's my commitment. We as Conservatives are always happy to work with any party to collaborate and extend and advance the interests of Canadians. We are, but there will be no compromise on this point. Conservatives will not support any new tax increases, and we will fight tooth and nail to stop the coalition from introducing any.
It was also a big day for Poilievre's son, Cruz. He turns 1 today. Canada's top American diplomat was in Gander today, thanking the community for its help in the wake of the September 11th attacks. Gander took in thousands of stranded airline passengers when flights across the globe were grounded in 2001. We spoke with the American ambassador, with a survivor of the 9/11 attacks in New York who's finding healing here, and with someone who did their master's on Gander.
Good will always triumph over evil. But it is obviously an emotional day. It starts with the emotion of what happened on September 11th, 2001 in the United States. It was a day of the most significant terrorist attack on U.S. soil in the history of our country, and for many of us, most of us, it shattered the illusion that somehow we were safe in the United States from terrorist attack. As unspeakable as the evil was that was visited on the United States, we also had this incredible series of acts of kindness by Americans, by Canadians, by people in the rest of the world to demonstrate that kindness will triumph over evil. And that's emotional for me too, but that's emotional in a very positive way.
I'm a 9/11 survivor, and on September 11th I was at my desk in an office across the street from One World Trade. So I experienced, or I should say I heard and I felt the first plane hit at 8:46 a.m. To make a very long story short, my sister, who also worked in the area, convinced me to leave. She would come towards what everybody else was running away from to make sure I left, and she did that, and because of that, I can stand here today. I have no doubt that if I didn't leave, I would have died that day. Heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they're just your big sister.
I did my master's thesis while I was in Fort Worth, Texas, on 9/11 in Newfoundland, particularly about resilience, community resilience, narrative, and identity, and the way that those three things happened to collide. I witnessed 9/11 at a very young age, at 5, and that sticks with you. And so I've had this sort of, I guess you could say, a morbid curiosity about 9/11 since then. I'm also a huge musical theater fan, massive. When I saw Come From Away, it's like, that's the thing. It was like these two interests collided, and I heard the cast recording when it came out, and it struck me deeply. And it never let go.
In other news now, there's a local program underway for women of all ages and skill levels to lace up their skates and get into hockey. The all-female Tomcats hockey team welcomes women who haven't played since they were kids, to those who are brand new to the ice, and on top of that, it's free to take part. Take a look.
We also have a gear share program to alleviate that cost from participants as well. So it's really difficult, you know, to try something new and invest hundreds of dollars in hockey equipment and, you know, maybe skate a few times and then not want to do it anymore. So we really want to, when we say to give women an opportunity to play, a full opportunity, absolutely no pressure at all for them to invest anything, only their time, and to try to learn something new and have fun.
I just wanted to know how to play hockey. I was told it was for men only, and I'm a girl that likes to get down and dirty, so I like to be rough, and it's something new.
For me, I've been wanting to play hockey, I think, for years. My boys play, and growing up, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. Hockey wasn't available, and this program is just fantastic. I've been playing for about a year and a half in rec leagues, but I haven't had the opportunity to really be taught how to play, and so this is making up some gaps in my understanding.
It's a full female coaching staff. It's fully run and operated by females, which I think really helps to break down that and give women a sense of comfort that, okay, we are supportive. This is 100% for you. We understand completely where you're coming from.
It was a little intimidating getting on the ice because you're like slipping everywhere, but this is fantastic, learning to get down, get up, and it's such a great atmosphere. You learn so much.
I didn't start hockey till I was 43, and starting something physical and challenging later in life is intimidating.
It is.
And not necessarily available, and then you, as an adult, you have financial commitments, and paying for a rec league game that's expensive is difficult, especially when you don't know what you're doing. So this gives you an opportunity to learn, make sure that you are comfortable with it, you're prepared to play, give you some sense of what it is, and then
just
you
to
go
have
from
fun
there.
and make friends.
The first time I played was with all guys, and it's a very different environment, and it's really intimidating to go out there and just have no idea what you're doing, and not have a supportive environment is very different than having a bunch of similar people with supportive attitudes and really encouraging approach. It makes a huge difference. Really setting a good example for young girls. I have daughters at home, and I'd like them to know that it's not just their brothers that get to do fun things.
Yeah, or even just your age. No matter your age, get out there and enjoy it.
Post-tropical storm Earl certainly walloped parts of the Avalon. We're going to have more on the damage that was done and what you can expect in the days ahead. Ryan's in for Ashley tonight. His full forecast is up next.
Time for a check of your forecast. Ryan Snodden in for Ashley tonight. And in case you missed it off the top of the show, just want to run down some of these rainfall totals across the Avalon. Obviously, this was the bullseye with Hurricane Earl and the relentless day after day rain adding up to over 200 millimeters, as we saw earlier in the program. But just wanted to recap in case you missed it. Boy, that onshore flow certainly having an impact on our temperatures as well. 13, 15 degrees from the Bayvert Peninsula right down to St. John's. Temperatures into the 20s though, Corner Brook, the southwest coast, and across into the Burin Peninsula. And you can see Labrador into the teens, and temperatures are going to be, well, cooling as we work our way through the next few days, especially late week. Here's how it's all going to play out. So there's our remnants of Earl still spinning around the Grand Banks. The reason this system has been parked there is this area of high pressure, which is blocking the highway, not allowing anything to get through. That block is going to break down here over the next 24 to 48 hours. Earl is going to depart, and then we're going to be watching our next system start to creep its way in. But for tonight, a few more showers, and yes, some drizzle intermixed with those showers, and that northwesterly flow, which is going to be persistent throughout the day tomorrow. Now note into the afternoon, places like Grand Falls, Windsor, even Gander will likely see some sunshine breaking through. Bonavista, Clarenville, St. John's, the Avalon, not so much. Just that cloud cover looks set to remain capped. Beautiful day on the west coast tomorrow, as you will see, and we will see some showers starting to creep their way into Labrador City and Churchill Falls. Temperatures there near 17, 18 degrees. Happy Valley Goose Bay near 20 tomorrow with those clouds building in. Pretty nice day through Nain and across the island again. Another beautiful day from the Straits, St. Anthony, Northern Peninsula, right down through Corner Brook, Port aux Basques. Those winds will be light and then increasing as we work our way east. And Gander to Bonavista to Clarenville and St. John's. Once again, likely temperatures aren't going to get much warmer than 14 to 15 degrees. Those northerly winds gusting 50 to 60 kilometers per hour. So it's just going to be one of those days. But we will see, again, a brighter day across the Burin Peninsula at 20. Now, as we look forward into the Tuesday night time period, the remnants of Earl continue to move off to the east. Still some lingering drizzle for Wednesday morning for places like Bonavista, Bonavista North, St. John's, and then into the afternoon, we'll start to see some clearing. At the same time, our next weather system is coming in, and we will see some wetter weather setting up Labrador City across to Happy Valley Goose Bay, and yes, southwest half of Newfoundland starting to get into some of those at least shower chances, even some steadier periods of rain moving into places like Port aux Basques with temperatures onshore flow there near 17 degrees. 25 in Corner Brook, we'll see some sunshine early, but increasing clouds and those showers moving in late day. And yes, we'll see increasing clouds across central, but it looks like we'll stay dry. And again, that drizzle departing finally for St. John's with some sun into the afternoon. Now, as we work our way through Wednesday night and through Thursday, that band of rain moves through. This weather system, it's really going to be a significant one in terms of what we see on the other side of it. So Thursday afternoon, we'll actually see some clearing across the southeast half of the island. Still an onshore flow for Corner Brook and the west coast, but look at the cold air being pulled back into Labrador City, Wabush, and yes, it looks like a chance for some flakes flying by the time we get into certainly that time period. So here's how things are going to play out. 14 to 16 degrees, as we said, for St. John's. Warming up for Thursday, 22 back into the teens on the back side of that system. As it departs, we're going to be seeing just some cooler air wrapping back in, so we're back into the mid-teens there. Central Newfoundland, we'll see, again, a pretty nice day on Wednesday with increasing clouds. Showers moving in for Thursday, but then looking at some clearing into the afternoon. For Friday and Saturday, just a little on the unsettled side, 14 to 15 degrees. The west coast will remain unsettled on Thursday, and then, yeah, a little cooler, certainly in the wake of that low for Friday and into the Saturday time period. Eastern Labrador, you folks seeing, again, increasing clouds for Tuesday. Looking at the best chance of showers will be Thursday and into Friday. We're looking at those temperatures really dropping off there, and especially in the overnights. And how about Labrador City? Yes, we will see highs near 5 on Thursday, and then the potential for snow mixing in for Thursday night into Friday morning, then recovering into the high single digits for Friday and into the Saturday time period. That is your forecast to now.
So as you can see, the rain is starting to come down. My hair's getting a little bit wet, but the crews are still working away to try to get this road reopened. We're going to hear from the City of St. John's coming up after the break. So as we can see behind me, it's a massive undertaking that city staff are trying to fix up here in Kilbride near Mooney Crescent, but they are making pretty quick work of it. Now, residents in the area told me that what they're trying to do is make the road accessible so that people like Mr. Ken Mahoney, who we spoke to earlier today, can get out of their driveways and get on with their day. Now, earlier this afternoon, I should say, the City of St. John's held a media briefing to update people on the impact that this storm has had on the City of St. John's. And here's a little bit of what Lynn Ann Windsor had to say.
It seems as though the west end of the city received more rainfall than the east end right now. I mean, I don't have any of that confirmed, but it seems like the Waterford Valley area received more rainfall than, say, the east end. So that seems to be the area that has the most damage so far. Living in the city of St. John's, on the Avalon, in the Atlantic, this is not something that's that rare, unfortunately. So we do have procedures in place where when we would have got the forecast last week to see that there is a hurricane in the Atlantic, it's coming up the eastern seaboard, not going to make landfall anywhere. Those are the ones that, set their sights on the city of St. John's. So we start clearing catch basins. We go to areas that are known for flooding, around rivers for sure, and make sure that debris and whatever we can clear out of there, we prepare sandbags, we get barricades ready because we know we could be closing roads. So we have a checklist. We go through it. We make sure we get as ready as we can be, and then we just wait and see what happens. Well, I guess the reality is anytime you construct trailways and paths next to a river, it's in the floodplain. It is expected to flood. So that's kind of what we're seeing there. I mean, over the years, we try to use materials that maybe are less prone to damage, but when you construct in a floodway of a river, you will see damage when we get events like we've had over this past weekend.
So when Windsor was asked about what sort of cost this will cost the city, for lack of a better word, she didn't really have an answer on this. But as you can see behind us, they're literally tearing up the road like I would tear through a bag of chips. So obviously this is not going to be a cheap fix. But now, as for the timeline on when Mooney Crescent and a couple of the other streets in the city of St. John's will reopen, there is no timeline on that yet, but the city said it will keep the public updated, and if people have concerns about what's open, what's not, is to check the city's website for all that information. Now, the thing about this project is that now it's starting to rain again, and it's expected to rain for the next couple of days, so all this work will be pretty wet work, but it will get done. Windsor says it's just not really sure when. Reporting live for Here and Now from the Kilbride neighborhood of St. John's, I'm a very wet Jeremy Eaton.
Newfoundland and Labrador officially declared King Charles III sovereign this weekend following the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, last week. The declaration is a tradition that dates back to the 1700s. A formal ceremony was held at Government House in St. John's, kicking off the King's reign with a bang, a 21-gun salute.
At 2:34 p.m. Thursday, September 8th, official word was received from the Governor-General and Commander-in-Chief of Canada, the Right Honourable Mary Simon, that our Sovereign Lady, Queen Elizabeth II, whom had reigned over Canada and our other realms and territories for more than 70 years, had died peacefully at Balmoral.
We pray now for our Sovereign Lord the King and all the royal family, that you might reassure them of your continuing love and lift them from the depths of grief.
Announcing the accession of the new sovereign, His Majesty, King Charles III. As the chief advisor to the Crown and Right of Newfoundland and Labrador, it is my solemn duty to call upon the Lieutenant Governor to make the proclamation. Your Honor, please join me for the proclamation signing.
Given under my hand and the Great Seal of Newfoundland and Labrador at Government House in St. John's this 10th day of September in the year of our Lord 2022, in the first of His Majesty's reign, in her honor's command, God save the King.
The focus of Britain's 10 days of national mourning is on Scotland today. Queen Elizabeth's casket will remain there until it's flown to London tomorrow. But even as thousands of her Scottish subjects show up to pay their final respects in Edinburgh, support for the monarchy itself remains uncertain. The CBC's Chris Brown reports.
This was Scotland's day to showcase its appreciation and affection for the Queen. Members of the Royal Regiment of Scotland placed her casket in the hearse for a procession along Edinburgh's Royal Mile.
All of this celebration of her happened because she died in Scotland, and I think that would have made her very happy.
Together publicly for the first time since her death, the Queen's 4 children followed behind. Prince Edward on the right, Prince Andrew, Princess Anne, and King Charles. At St. Giles's Cathedral, pallbearers moved the casket inside, where the crown of Scotland, crafted almost 500 years ago, was placed atop.
To our late monarch, whose love for Scotland was legendary.
The minister celebrated a life of service and dedication.
Scotland is a place that Charles, as Prince of Wales, came often. To come here now as king is significant for many in this crowd.
Polls suggest that while most Scots support the monarchy, enthusiasm is lower than in England. So one of King Charles's key tasks will be to keep a high profile, says this expert.
Everybody in Scotland is a kind of nationalist with a small n, and they'd easily be provoked by any signs of disrespect for Scotland or not taking Scotland seriously, even unionists. So the monarchy has to be sure they don't put a foot wrong here.
Outside, the sense was the new king's reign is beginning well.
I think it's a unifying event. I think it's very important that we are a union, and it has been proved that today, the turnout.
King Charles also visited Scottish Parliament, where independence parties dominate. The UK government has rejected calls for another referendum on the topic. The King will have to navigate that challenge too.
I take up my new duties with thankfulness for all that Scotland has given me.
Later, the 4 royals returned to St. Giles for a vigil to publicly honour their mother and join with Scots in saying farewell. Chris Brown, CBC News, Edinburgh.
Welcome to the British residence.
Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky is also paying tribute to the Queen. The Ukrainian president was at the residence of the UK ambassador today. He and other members of his staff signed a book of condolence. Zelensky has called the British monarch's death on Thursday an irreparable loss. We'll be right back. The federal Conservative Party has a new leader. Pierre Poilievre won the leadership contest on the weekend with plenty of support from this province. In total, almost 3,000 Conservative members in Newfoundland and Labrador voted, and they voted overwhelmingly for Pierre Poilievre. In fact, in Labrador, he received the highest percentage of any riding in the country, with 89% of the vote. Even the lowest riding in St. John's East, it was more than half. Well, Devin Drover was the Atlantic director with his campaign, and he's just back from Ottawa. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Peter.
So were you surprised by the results?
Not surprised. I mean, it was, I traveled with Pierre across the region, and it was clear that we had a lot of support in every riding in Atlantic Canada. So it was no surprise to see us win all 32 of those ridings, including every riding here in, back home in Newfoundland and Labrador.
I want to ask about the Labrador numbers. There were only about 130 or so voters, so it was a small number. But, what do you read into the fact that he got the largest support in that riding of anywhere in the country?
I think it's one is that he's made an effort to pay attention to rural and northern parts of Canada, and I think his message resonates a lot with the voters in those areas. And I think also it's very clear. I think that Newfoundlanders and Labradorians in that case are getting tired of the federal Trudeau government and are ready for change. I think Pierre Poilievre is a great agent for that change.
Now, the Conservative Party has had trouble trying to convince voters to support it over the last couple of elections, going back to Stephen Harper. What do you think Pierre Poilievre needs to do in order to convert some of those people who, were kind of turned off, especially with they sort of felt that Newfoundland and Labrador was neglected by, for example, the Harper government?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way that the Conservative Party led by Pierre Poilievre is going to change that is actually making an effort to be involved here on the ground in Newfoundland and Labrador. We did multiple campaign stops for the election here at 3 different rallies with a lot of big turnout from Central and Clarenville and St. John's, and he's looking forward to coming out to the west coast of the island of Labrador later this year. I think part of it's showing up and part of it's promoting a positive Conservative message. I think he also, even in his victory speech on Saturday night, made himself very clear that he's a supporter of Newfoundland and Labrador's offshore oil industry and promising to double production, which I think resonates with Newfoundlanders and Labradorians who are similarly big proponents of our industry. And I think, I think the other thing is his messages that are important to Canadians right now are ones that he's been speaking about for his entire career, and those are the messages that people are interested in right now. Addressing the cost of living is big right across this province. We see it with the price of gasoline, and he's promising to scrap the carbon tax to lower the price of gasoline.
Now, there are some members of the party who are not pleased with the result. For example, Rhonda McMeekin, who's part of the provincial PC executive, she said she's resigned her membership in the federal party because she can't be a part of a party with him as leader. He was a somewhat polarizing figure. How worried are you that there may be some of the folks who have traditionally, voted and supported the party in other ways who may now leave?
I'm not at all worried about party unity. I can't speak for Ms. McMeekin on her decision, but it's very clear Pierre had the support of over half of the federal caucus. All of his federal leadership candidates announced their support for uniting the party moving forward. Including his rival, his closest rival, Jean Charest, announced his support yesterday to unite the party and to be one voice moving forward. So I'm not really concerned about party unity. I think it's important that all Canadians who are, interested in a change in government, one that stands for lower taxes, one that stands for housing affordability, one that stands for getting inflation under control. I encourage every Canadian to unite behind Pierre Poilievre in that mission.
Well, Devin Drover, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Peter. It's always a pleasure.
Well, the new Conservative leader says Canadians are hurting, and he's the one to fix that. Poilievre met with Conservative MPs and senators today, his first caucus meeting since winning the top job on the weekend. And as Catherine Cullen reports, while it was all smiles, there were questions about internal tensions.
he may be trying to show off a softer side, kicking off his first caucus meeting with a celebration for his son. But make no mistake, Pierre Poilievre's attack dog style is still there.
Canadians are out of money, and this Prime Minister is out of touch.
Though the Liberals are ready to attack right back.
A leader who advocated a series of policies and a series of ideas in the run-up to winning the leadership that are pretty irresponsible and pretty reckless. So,
like what?
Well, firing the governor of the Bank of Canada, telling people that you can sort of be insulated from inflation if you invest in cryptocurrency.
Poilievre is trying to stay focused on Canadians' economic woes, blaming the Prime Minister.
If you really care, commit today that there will be no new tax increases on workers and on seniors. None.
But the Conservatives also have to look inwards. The leadership race was divisive.
The average trucker has more integrity in his pinky finger than you had in your entire scandal-plagued Liberal cabinet.
But the end was decisive. With a stunning win of 68%, a clear result that might bring some on side.
We're not as divided as people would maybe have us, think.
Including this British Columbia MP and former cabinet minister.
Can you guarantee that you're sticking around?
Absolutely, I'm sticking around. I'm a Conservative, and I'm asking all Conservatives now to unite behind our new leader.
But asked if he'd start advocating for some of Poilievre's more contentious positions, ones he previously opposed, Ed Fast said no, meaning unity could still prove complicated. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau congratulated Poilievre today on winning the Conservative Party leadership, then immediately went after him, speaking after a caucus meeting in New Brunswick.
Buzzwords, dog whistles, and careless attacks don't add up to a plan for Canadians. Attacking the institutions that make our society fair, safe, and free is not responsible leadership. Telling people they can opt out of inflation by investing their savings in volatile cryptocurrencies is not responsible leadership. By the way, anyone who followed that advice would have seen their life savings destroyed.
During the leadership campaign, Poilievre said he would normalize the use of cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, in part to reduce the influence of central bankers. He also said he'd fire the current governor of the Bank of Canada. Well, it's a show that's gone to the dogs and the cats. Tomorrow on the St. John's Morning Show, host Chrissy Holmes will speak with Newfoundland actress Nicole Power, who's starring in the second season of the CBC television show Strays. And Labrador Mourning tomorrow is going to speak with MHA Perry Trimper about his decision to rejoin the Liberals and what it will mean for the people of his district of Lake Melville. That's coming up tomorrow on CBC Radio. Experts say the latest composite image from the James Webb Telescope will contribute to a better understanding of just how massive stars transform the gas and dust clouds on which they were born. Let's take a look. Well, this is the Orion Nebula, which is about 1,350 light years from Earth. The new telescope images let scientists see through layers of dust, which usually makes it harder to see the deeper areas. The Orion Nebula is considered to be a similar environment to our own solar system, and scientists believe it could help them learn more about what happened when our solar system was first formed. Well, it looks nice and starry and beautiful. Definitely not like the weather that we've been having, at least on the eastern part of the island. Lots to take in with all of the recent stormy weather and damage. The reporters are going to be on that story overnight and into tomorrow, and we'll have lots of updates for you on Here and Now tomorrow, especially with the weather forecast and keeping an eye on, hopefully, finally, the remnants of Hurricane Earl will just try and move its way out there and over into the North Atlantic. And that's it for us on Here and Now for tonight. I'm Peter Cowan. Thanks so much for watching. We'll leave you with a beautiful shot, well, not so beautiful, of outside in St. John's. Have a great night.